Most anime these days are straight up trash, ranging from the laughably bad to the middest of the mid, but one day, as I was scrolling through Chrome on incognito mode for no suspicious reasons, I saw that this anime's name was Orient, and that name spoke to me not literally. Since Musashi is so weak at the start, I want to become his Japanese sensei, but he already has a goddess, so I want your help in spreading this action-packed story by liking this video, commenting below, and subscribing to the channel. In 1568, a giant demon called the Kishin appeared, putting an end to human rule in Hinamoto. Warlords tried to fight back, but most of them were defeated, and only a few brave warriors, known as Bushi, continued to stand against the Kishin and fought the Oni. 151 years later, in the town of Tatsuyama, people now worship the Kishin, hoping to stay safe. At the miner training school, Musashi's classmates praise him for being the top miner. During history class, they're taught that Bushi were monsters who made life miserable for regular people 150 years ago. However, Musashi knows that the Bushi were actually the only ones who fought against the Oni. He remembers his childhood training in sword fighting with Kojiro, whose father, Jisei, showed them old scrolls that described how the Bushi still fought the Oni to free humanity, and inspired Musashi to create the strongest Bushi band with Kojiro to defeat the Oni. After class, Musashi visits Kojiro, nervous about graduation and the idea of becoming a miner. He shows Kojiro his pickaxe, calling it his sword for fighting Oni, and asks him to leave town to form a Bushi band, but Kojiro refuses, thinking his father lied about the Bushi being heroes, so he frustratingly leaves. The next day, Musashi and his class graduate and enter the mines, where they meet their first Oni when it becomes clear they were taught wrong since the Oni are cruel. And one student is eaten before Musashi declares he wants to fight the Oni, but realizes he forgot his pickaxe. As an Oni attacks him, he grabs an ordinary pickaxe to defend himself as Kojiro suddenly arrives with his Kaitetsuki sword and saves Musashi. He gives Musashi his pickaxe, showing he understands Musashi's real dream. Together, they fight off the Oni. Musashi admits he wants to form a Bushi band with Kojiro, not because he's afraid, but because he doesn't want to be alone and wants to have fun with Kojiro. Suddenly, a light shines from the sky, and a Kishin appears. Riding the Kaitetsuki, Musashi cuts down Oni one after another, thrilled about forming a Bushi band with Kojiro. However, Kojiro isn't as excited since he wants to leave town but has lost his desire to slay Oni. They run into a Kishin and are surprised by how small it is before Musashi slices it in half, but it quickly regenerates. Villagers gather to worship the Kishin, offering sacrifices, transforming it into Engoku Tengu, a massive and terrifying beast. The villagers are delighted, as this is the first time in 5 years that they've seen the Kishin in its true form. As Musashi is lying on the ground, Kojiro prepares to fight, but the Kishin grabs his sword before the villagers warn that the Kishin consumes swords, but Kojiro refuses to let go, so it starts slamming him around. Kojiro remembers his childhood when he was forced to carry a sword because he was a Bushi descendant and got bullied for it, but his father, Jisei, reassured him that the sword symbolized Bushi pride and that they were the ones who fought against the Oni. Kojiro doesn't let go of his sword, but the Kishin eventually pulls away his sword and eats it before Musashi leaps onto it and attacks its belly. It tries to crush Musashi, but he dodges, causing the Kishin to slam into the ground, tearing its belly open. Musashi falls inside and reappears with Kojiro's sword, returning it to him. Kojiro, remembering his father's words, agrees to form a band with Musashi. Suddenly, a villager announces that a group of Bushi is approaching, and the two see a moving castle with Bushi riding Kaitetsuki. The Bushi captain, Natora Takeda, advises them to move to safety, but Musashi declares they are Bushi, having fought the Kishin, and Natora points to the Kishin, which is regenerating. As the Kishin prepares to attack, Kojiro says they should step aside, but Musashi rushes forward, slaying smaller Oni along the way as the Bushi wonder if he's really a Bushi. Natora watches Musashi approach the Kishin, remarking that defeating it is pointless if they can't protect the people. Musashi charges toward the Kishin, but his attacks don't work really well, so Shunrei pulls him back to Takeda's camp, and Natora warns him that it's too dangerous for a reckless kid to run onto the battlefield, since it usually takes many Bushi to control, let alone defeat, a Kishin. Musashi admits he might not be able to defeat it alone, but says he's got to try, fearing he'll regret not giving his all before breaking free and running back into the fight, so Natora allows him, realizing he's willing to risk his life. The Bushi prepare to shoot the Kishin's cool horn, but Musashi causes a landslide. It manages to dodge the bush's attack before Musashi jumps forward, but his pickaxe breaks. Kojiro, after speaking with the worshippers, tells him to aim for the horn on the Kishin's navel, as Musashi is left defenseless. But Naotora steps in and slashes the horn, killing the Kishin. Naotora apologizes for taking Musashi's first kill while, as the Kishin explodes, the Bushi absorb its energy. Naotora promises the villagers that his Bushi band will defeat all Kishin and bring peace, acknowledging that some Bushi prioritize stability over fighting Oni, but believes in passing dreams to future generations. The Bushi start cheering as Kojiro realizes Naotora matches his father's description of Bushi. Musashi is still annoyed, but Naotora apologizes for taking their kill, offering a crystal as a consolation prize. He later discovers the crystal is a kaleidoscope with the Aki province seal, matching patterns from the Bushi scrolls, which means that it could be used to locate other Kishin, and they learn that the ultimate goal is to unite the land. The next day, the two leave town and Musashi remarks that he's grateful for Kojiro's friendship and swordsmanship training, knowing that without him, he might have ended up as a miner with no dreams. Musashi and Kojiro agree to avoid fighting while traveling together and have a great time for the first few days, but after a week, they run out of food. Musashi, now hungry and thirsty, blames Kojiro for not bringing enough supplies, but he angrily answers that Musashi left everything to him. Though he had to learn to be self-sufficient, catching fish while Musashi didn't, hearing which Musashi angrily decides to go fish in a different spot. Kojiro begins to question why he's competing with Musashi when a girl named Tsugumi appears. Musashi returns to apologize but finds Kojiro pinned to the ground by Tsugumi, who orders them to hand over their valuables, but Musashi fights her off, realizing she's skilled but not very strong. Tsugumi then tries to seduce Musashi, but he doesn't fall for it, explaining he's been trained to resist such tricks, so she reveals her weapons. But a horn signals that it's past noon and she'd eat with their vehicle. Tsugumi meets Hideo Kosameda, apologizing for being late but having successfully stolen the Kaitatsuki from Musashi and Kojiro as instructed. Hideo praises her, and Musashi and Kojiro follow the trail of the Kaitatsuki to Kosameda Bushi Fortress. They enter and meet Tsugumi, who explains that Bushi castles can move because of the people living there, and tells them about her sister Tsubame, who was killed, leaving her all alone, which Musashi relates to, revealing how he's also alone. Hideo invites them to dinner and suggests they join Kosameda Bushi to fight Onai in the area before Musashi asks about Kaitetsu hearing, which Hideo realizes they don't know what it is and has them arrested. Tsugumi visits them later, saying she's worried about the safety of the townspeople before breaking down in tears. Kojiro uses a chain and hook to grab the keys, allowing him and Musashi to escape from Kosameda Castle prison. They find their vehicle, the Kaitatsuki, but still need their weapons, and while searching for them, they notice a large group of Kodama Onai heading toward the castle. Hideo tells Tsugumi about the Onai attack and orders total mobilization as she remembers Musashi's advice and disagrees with Hideo's plan, which makes him angry. He pretends to be upset, saying he treated her like a daughter, but she doesn't understand his care and expels her from the group, warning that he'll pretend it never happened. As she obeys him, so to avoid being disowned, she reluctantly agrees. While standing in front of a portrait of Hideo, Tsubame, and herself, Tsugumi remembers her sister's similar experience, which helps her decide to protect the townspeople and go against Hideo before Musashi and Kojiro suddenly burst through a wall, destroying the portrait as they search for their swords. Tsugumi tells them they must stay locked up, but Musashi doesn't care about Hideo's rules, believing she's stronger than she thinks and inviting her to join them to fight the Onai, hearing which, she agrees to lead them to their weapons. Once they have their swords, they head to the square where Hideo has gathered the townspeople, intending to send them into battle, but Tsugumi throws smoke bombs, saying Bushi should protect people, not send them to fight, while Musashi and Kojiro knock out the guards using the smoke as cover. However, Hideo's threats keep the townspeople from escaping, so she fights him to give them courage, and although she gets overwhelmed, she spits blood in his face to reject his control and fights back, defeating him, inspiring the townspeople to escape. Musashi and Kojiro rescue Tsugumi as the castle falls during the Kodama Onai attack. Musashi and Kojiro are asked by the villagers to take Tsugumi with them when they leave, but she's confused, unsure of why the villagers suddenly want her gone, so Musashi asks them to clarify, and they explain that they aren't trying to get rid of her. They're trying to protect her from Hideo, who was once involved with Tsugumi, became obsessed with her after a betrayal. and the villagers fear that he might try to control her again if he finds her. She insists she won't listen to him. But as she thinks about, she starts doubting herself and becomes upset, crying because she doesn't want to leave her home. The villagers offer to protect her, but this only convinces her that she should leave to keep them safe, so she asks Musashi if she can join them, and he agrees. Later, he asks her why she changed her mind, to which she admits that she's scared that if Hideo manipulates her, she might end up harming the people she cares about, and that she feels weak because she can't fully let go of him. Musashi consoles her, saying that it's difficult to let go of someone who feels like family, even if they aren't blood-related. She explains that Hideo isn't her biological father, but Musashi understands, as he viewed Kojiro's father as his own, after which the group leaves the village, with children crying as they say goodbye to Tsugumi. On their journey, they discuss Kaitetsu blades, and he encounters Shiro Inukai, who lends him a Kaitetsu blade to defeat an Oni. Musashi uses it but breaks the sword, so Shiro remarks that there are powers before disappearing with his servant, leaving Musashi and his friends confused. Later, they head to a market to get their own Kaitetsu blades. At the merchant market, Musashi excitedly watches all the Bushi warriors before Tsugumi explains that Kaitetsu Sen is the currency used here, and Kaitetsu blades are the market's highlight, typically saved for the last day. While they're eating, a Bushi asks which band they belong to, so Kojiro says they don't have a name yet, making the Bushi laugh. Tsugumi then asks Musashi why he wants to hunt Oni, and he explains that it's their dream to have the best Bushi band. She doesn't fully understand what it means to be the best, but she tells them that they need a leader to know who gives orders, so Musashi suggests Kojiro as captain, because he doesn't have a family name, and reassures him that he's fine with it. The auction for Kaitetsu blades starts with 25 swords from the Ryuzoji band. Musashi isn't sure how to choose, but a woman named Mitsuru Osafune, the leader of Ryuzoji band, advises him to pick the one that he feels drawn to, so he selects Enma's Odachi, which Tsugumi finds plain, but Mitsuru praises his choice. Kojiro hesitates before choosing a sword called Vorpal Cherry Blossoms, which she also praises, and reveals that the auction is actually a ritual where the sword selects its master. Musashi goes for the trial but fails before she explains that some souls aren't compatible with Kaitetsu blades, shocking him as he realizes he might not become a Bushi. Later, during an Onai attack, Kojiro uses his new Kaitetsu blade to protect Musashi and others before Shiro appears again, noticing Musashi's struggle and remarking that he might belong with them. Shiro is excited to meet Musashi, whose black stones are the source of his power. He says he believes Musashi wants to get stronger and rejoin his friends, explaining that Musashi can use Kaitetsu blades if he accepts the black stones, and seeing how Musashi blacked out during the trial because he resisted them. To demonstrate the power of Kaitetsu blades, Shiro cuts a large square into the ground and breaks it into smaller pieces before tossing Musashi a Kaitetsu blade, suggesting that if he surrenders to it, he could become the ultimate weapon. Musashi declines, saying he wants to fight with his friends, so Shiro then suggests turning Musashi's friends into swords to keep him company and pushes him into the pit with the Kaitetsu blade. Meanwhile, Kojiro, Tsugumi, and the other Bushi are heading towards the Kishin. She worries about leaving Musashi alone, but Kojiro explains they can't help him and should focus on fighting the Kishin. She asks about Musashi's black stones, and Kojiro explains that Musashi comes from a family of farmers, unlike Kojiro's Bushi background. Shiro's companion, Nano, brings dinner and asks about Musashi, so Shiro reveals he threw him into the pit to turn him into a sword. In the pit, Musashi grabs the falling Kaitetsu blade to stop himself, but black stones start covering his body. He has to choose between letting go and burning alive or embracing the black stone's power, so he tries to climb out, but the goddess within him intervenes, causing him to fall into the magma. He wakes up in a weird place where the goddess urges him to stay with her forever, but he refuses, remembering his friends and his desire to help them. Despite her efforts to break his spirit, Musashi resists, determined to return to his friends, while Kojiro, Tsugumi, and the other Bushi reach the Kishin. The Bushi find a headless Kishin and think it's dead, but Tsugumi warns them that it might still be alive because it hasn't turned into Kaitetsu yet. Kojiro inspects the body, finding no weak points, suggesting the Kishin's horn might be on its head before Shiro arrives and confirms the horn's location. A group of Bushi surround him, asking where the head is so they can kill the Kishin, and claim the Kaitetsu, seeing which he quickly kills the Bushi, revealing that he's a sword hunter looking for Kaitetsu blades. The remaining Bushi try to fight him, but Shiro easily defeats them and recognizes Kojiro, telling him that Musashi has become a Kaitetsu blade, hinting that Kojiro will soon join him. Meanwhile, Musashi, who has turned into a black stone, is pulled from magma by Nano. The obsidian goddess is frustrated because Musashi's revival has thrown off her plans, but he wakes up surprising Nano, who thought he was turned to stone. Realizing what's happened, he rushes to the mountaintop, thanking Nano for her help. That night, Musashi visits Jisei to apologize for his earlier behavior, but he says he understands, saying that Musashi's friendship helped Kojiro. Jisei offers him a place to stay, giving him a new home which he agrees to. Shiro becomes angry when the Bushi try to escape, killing the cowards but sparing Kojiro, admiring his bravery. When Musashi arrives, Shiro comments on his half-fused black stone state, warning that attacking Musashi could trigger the obsidian goddess's wrath. Shiro's assistant, Nanao, brings out her Kaitetsu blade, revealing her 7-belled armadillo sword with 7 flying blades, and attacks the group, effortlessly deflecting Musashi's attacks. He says they should break her blades before Kojiro comes up with a plan. Kojiro explains that she expects them to attack from multiple directions, and when Musashi and Tsugumi unexpectedly pull back, Nano thinks he might sacrifice himself for Musashi's escape, so she goes after Musashi. But Tsugumi steps in, using her Kaitetsu blade whip to grab one of Nano's blades before Musashi damages her staff, reducing her blades to 6. Approaching Musashi, Shiro challenges Nano, who wants to fight alone but he disagrees, saying they've always fought alone and sees weak allies as a problem. Growing bored with the goddess not doing anything, he activates his blade ring to reveal his full power and creates a light cube, trapping many Bushi before releasing smaller cubes. As Musashi falls, time stops and the obsidian goddess appears, acknowledging Shiro and Nano as their enemies. Seeing Musashi's reliance on his friends, the goddess decides to strengthen him temporarily, and when time resumes, she repels Nano's attacks using Kaitetsu blade energy, explaining the power of black stones but warning that she won't be able to maintain it for long. She asks if his friends will stay with him, which Kojiro confirms so. The goddess starts drawing energy from the Bushi, and as she readies her final move, Shiro is amazed by her power. The obsidian goddess tells Musashi she'll soon go back to sleep inside him, and says it's important for them to stay alive, especially since Jisei died before they could finish what they started. Musashi wonders about Jisei's connection to all this, but the goddess doesn't have time to explain and chooses to show him her fighting skills instead. Using energy from all Kaitetsu blades, the goddess launches a powerful attack towards Shiro and Nano, destroying several hills. Musashi gets back control, but feels the intensity of the battle as Kojiro and Tsugumi are impressed by how he defeated Shiro with one hit. Tsugumi wonders about his unusual strength, while Kojiro defends the goddess's kindness. She worries about how easily Kojiro trusts kind girls, and they notice Musashi's sword breaking again. Later, the Bushi hold a funeral for those who died in the battle, in which Tsugumi explains the importance of the Kaitetsu blades, which hold the essence of their owners. Mitsuru invites the group to her band castle for the night, and before they sleep, Musashi asks for something. The next day, she says Musashi will try the sword trial again, in which he chooses the same sword and easily passes the trial, exciting the onlookers. Musashi talks to Kojiro about seeing Jisei during the trial, but Kojiro doesn't remember much, while Musashi wonders about Jisei's connection to the goddess, and Nano reveals that they're chasing a criminal who has the goddess. As the Bushi leave, Kojiro regrets not learning more from his father and decides to explore outside their village. With supplies, the group looks at a map, excited to explore Hanamoto and agreeing to go east. As they're going through a forest, wearily pushing the Kaitetsuki in the hot weather, Kojiro remarks that they might be lost since the map didn't say anything about a forest, so Tsugumi annoyingly starts arguing with Kojiro. Musashi says he should try driving, and although Kojiro and Tsugumi agree, they decide to scare him by letting him go alone. However, they're all ambushed by an octopus jar's green Oni. Seeing Kojiro and Tsugumi captured, Musashi notices another person as well and remarks that these Oni never seem to get any less monstrous, but isn't helpless against them anymore. After defeating the Oni and absorbing its power, he saves Kojiro and Tsugumi and starts ripping open another part to save the person captured. He finds a young girl who points out that he's bleeding a little and thanks him for rescuing her, and an old man, referring to her as Princess, worries about her safety. She introduces herself as Michiru Saruatari, daughter of Lord Nobumitsu, and reveals their journey to the port of Harima for a final battle. The group joins her on her tank-like Kaitatsuki as Musashi senses a change in Michiru's behavior and tries to connect with her. Despite her silence, they discover they're from Bichu and head to Harima to fight a Kishin. Michiru tells them about the legend of the Black Kishin, a powerful Oni dividing Hinamoto, and the old man tells them about the danger of the Kishin's growth and how they need to defeat it. He believes Tatsuomi Yasuji can accomplish this, and leaves with Michiru as Musashi and Kojiro reflect on their revelations and decide to examine their scrolls further. Learning about the obsidian goddess being sighted at Mimasaka's eastern mine, they decide to head to Harima Port to find out more about Kojiro's father, which brings us to the end of the season. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.